What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the 10-7 MMA. I'm DS. He's Dino Bam Bam. What's up, Dino Bam Bam?
Hey, shit, man. We are getting there, DS. We are at the halfway point of the UFC season, and I'm excited, bro. International Fight Week, it's always a fucking banger. A lot of these MMA YouTubers and MMA personalities are saying this card sucks. I disagree, brother. I disagree.
I also disagree. I think it's a good card overall. We'll talk about it. Obviously, we're gonna go we're gonna go bottom to top, starting with the first fight, the prelims, and moving on up to the championship fights. But yeah, I think there's some good fights on here. Is there a ton of name value? Not there's obviously you got some nice prospects, Joshua Van, Payton Talbot. You've got some fan favorites and Renato Moicano and guys like that. And then of course you got the two title fights. I think it's a good card, man. Now, is it International Fight Week worthy? I think that's kind of debatable, maybe. But we've seen, this year, I feel like we're kind of, we'll see. Heavyweights moving up now. Obviously, the John Jones news. We'll see what happens, man. But I feel like the UFC is in a bit of a lull right now. But this is a massive card. I mean, you could really put the top two fights on the card and then fill in whatever, and I think it'd be a good card.
Yeah, that's what it is to me, man. I mean, I think there are some good fights, scattered throughout the prelims and on the main card. But when it comes to that main event, DS, to me, I think this is the biggest fight that the UFC could put on right now. Not for the fact that it's the matchup of these two, just for the fact that I think Ilia Topuria is the biggest storyline in MMA right now. I don't think it's the John Jones news or the Tom Aspinall news or even Islam potentially moving up to 170, which, not potentially. That's what's happening. But I think this Ilia Topuria storyline is the most captivating thing there is.
Yeah. I'm with you, man. And obviously, I kind of wish it wasn't Charles, and I know you maybe do too, but we'll get to that in a second, man. But before we go any further, go ahead and tell the people what you need to tell them.
Hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, do us a favor. Do like that thing at the bottom says, hit that like and subscribe button. It would mean a lot to you boys. And then you can also follow us on Instagram at the 10-7 MMA, like the thing at the bottom says now. Also, DS, a little bit of spoiler. Let's play a little spoiler here for the 17 fans that are watching. We got tickets to UFC 319 on the west side, right? That's the United Center, downtown Chicago. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
How many tickets did we purchase, DS?
About 8 of them.
About 8 of those hoes. I'm seeing 2 of us. I know 3 of those tickets are used up for some of our friends and stuff, but
bitches with us.
Hey. You know what I'm saying? But look, I think we got 2 to spare, DS. I think we got 2 to spare. And what I'm trying to say is 1 or 2 of those is going to be given away to followers of the 10-7 MMA on YouTube. How about that?
Isn't that something?
Isn't that something? We are going to do a giveaway, guys, for these tickets. The details are not concrete yet. We don't know exactly how we're doing it, but within this next week, definitely after the fight card, next week there's no UFC action. Me and DS, we're going to sit down, have a couple adult beverages, and figure out how we want to do this. But I know one thing's for certain. You got to be following. You got to be liked and subscribed and following us on Instagram to get those tickets. So do all that shit.
Get a head start on it. Get a head start now.
Get a head start on it. Maybe a couple nice DMs, a couple nice messages. DS, if someone sends you something nice, I feel like you're more liable to, kind of rig it for them to win.
You send me your girl's nudes, like I might be, that might work in your favor type shit.
That's that.
But no, we'll figure out how we're gonna do all that, obviously. And there, you'll know when that comes up. But yeah, give us a like and follow now so that you're up to date on all the news. Also, if you are in Chicago, we will definitely be on. We're going to the fights, obviously, as you know, but we're gonna be there early. I'm thinking maybe we'll be doing some like interviews in front of the UC, something like that. So we'll obviously formulate everything coming up next week, but look out for that.
Facts, and that's all I gotta say, DS.
Lovely, brother. Well, we've got 12 fights on the docket. One just changed, and we'll mention that when we get to it. But let's start with the first fight of the night, which is we're starting off with some crazy fucking odds, by far the widest odds on the entire card. And of course, I'm talking about Niko Price versus Jacobe Smith. Bam Bam, how do you see this fight going?
Yeah, man. I mean, the odds speak for themselves, DS. First and foremost, I just want to say I've told you this. I said it yesterday in the Quick Picks video, which you guys should check out. Link in the description below. Go give that a check out if you're into like a more fast-paced thing instead of me and DS fucking blabbing. But anyways, Jacobe Smith, DS, to me, one of my favorite prospects in the entire sport, man. I love this kid. I've thought very highly of him since the first time I saw him. He is a great wrestler, man. He's powerful. He's got finishing instincts. He's athletic. He's got a look to him. This kid is legit to me. And he is facing Niko Price, a veteran of the sport, a guy that's getting on in years, man. A prime Niko Price was no joke. Longtime fans of MMA know that Niko Price was a serious problem. It just seems like he's kind of fallen off the S. Father Time eventually catches up with everyone, and I think that's what's happening with Niko Price. I just mashed these two up. But we were there for the Niko Price Robbie Lawler fight, and that was crazy to see.
You goddamn right, man. Yep.
Great dude, man. Such a nice guy. We met him out in Vegas. Not enough good things I could say about Niko Price. I just think he's facing a little too much now. A younger guy, a hungrier guy, way more athletic, and I think he's on the way down. So give me Jacobe Smith, round 2 TKO.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you, man. Look, I do think that the odds are a little out of hand. Minus 1,800 is kind of fucking crazy. Jacobe Smith, like, he's just so much more athletic. He's jacked. He's strong. He's like, his bread and butter is the wrestling, right? And he's such a strong wrestler. He's such a physically strong guy. But on top of that, too, he's got the power, right? He's got 4 straight wins by knockout. He knocked out Preston Parsons in his UFC debut. Got the ground and pound win over Christian Savoy on the Contender Series. Yeah, man, I just think the athleticism is just going to be too much for Niko Price to handle at this stage of his career. He hasn't been like the most active in the last few years, too. And yeah, I mean, look, not all 35-year-olds look the same, right? It's just that Niko Price, I think, looked every bit of his age, unfortunately. And I say that as somebody who's going to be 35 next month. But you get what I'm saying, man. I just think the much younger guy, super highly touted aspect. We've seen Niko Price out wrestled repeatedly. Look at what Themba Gorimbo was able to do to him. And Themba does not have the threat of the power that Jacobe Smith has. So I agree with you, man. I think we're going to see a late first round knockout. There's really not much to bet here. And, I'm not going to go into too much betting on this. And I don't think neither of us should, because obviously look out for the breakdown from the betting perspective tomorrow with our boy, Harry from Pro Schmo Bets.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, there's not too much to say, right? A young prospect that the UFC wants to put on display versus a guy that has some name value on International Fight Week. They know the real fans of the sport are going to be tuned in early on, and that's what they want. They want you to see Jacobe Smith.
Yeah, exactly. It's a showcase. It's a showcase fight. All right, let's move on to the next fight, man. And dude, I kind of love this fight. It's Jhonata Diniz. He's a sizable favorite versus Alvin Hines. And look, I just like, as we're talking about this now, go just pull up a picture of Alvin Hines. This guy, to me, like, I haven't seen a guy like this in the UFC in like 20 years. Okay. This is like what all the UFC fighters used to look like. Okay. And he fights like how they all used to fight. Okay. You got Jhonata Diniz, who is just, big heavyweight, right? Like, look at him, look at his body. Like, you've seen this type of guy, right? He's big, he's powerful, but he's pretty one-dimensional, man. He's pretty much a nothing in the grappling. He does come from a pretty decent high-level kickboxing background. So pretty one-dimensional fighter, right? You know what he's going to want to do. He's going to want to stand and bang and try to keep the distance on Alvin Hines. Alvin Hines is stepping in on short notice here. He's balanced, man. He's a balanced kind of fighter, right? But he's not elite in anything, right? It's not like he's some elite grappler or wrestler or like he's got some power, right? But it's not like he's some crazy, dominant power guy either. Just look at his body, though. You can tell the guy used to be fatter. He's 33, but he looks older than both of us by 4 or 5 years at least. He's only 7-0, right? This is just such an interesting guy, man. Part of me wants to pick him. I really do. Like, I just think the weakness of Jhonata Diniz is so glaring. And he's only had 9 professional fights, right? Alvin has only had 7 professional fights. So these guys are kind of similar in that regard. Jhonata Diniz is going to be the bigger guy, man. I keep going back and forth on this, right? Like, to me, it's, I have not seen anything really from Diniz on the ground. If Alvin can get this to the ground, I kind of see him winning it, man. And I know maybe this is insane, but I just feel like he's gonna be more aggressive. And I don't know, Jhonata Diniz, like, he hasn't shown me that much, right? Like, yeah, he has a high level kickboxing credential, but like, I don't know, like what have I really seen from him that's going to make me kind of love that, right? His win versus Carl Williams. I mean, he had a knockout over Austin Lane, who's trash, right? Like, and look, Alvin is kind of an unknown, and maybe it's just the fondness of me remembering these types of guys from before. Give me Alvin Hines, man. Give me Alvin Hines by decision, or maybe by ground and pound, right? I think we're gonna see him just kind of put the pressure on Diniz, and I'm just not a big believer. I'm going on a big underdog here. Don't bet this, right? I don't feel super confident in it, but something in me is just telling me I just think that there's such a big glaring weakness, and this guy can make it dirty enough where he can get the win.
Yeah, Diaz, look, I agree on a couple things, man. First and foremost, I think the odds are a little out of whack on this one. I do agree that Jhonata Diniz is not a very good fighter, in my opinion. I said that on the quick picks, and I'm holding true to that. I think he's a little overrated. Yes, his stand-up is refined, right? He does have great kickboxing. Not great. It's good. It's really good. It's sharp. It's technical, and he's got some power, but there's nothing special about Jhonata Diniz. As far as the grappling is concerned, you mentioned him having no grappling. On the ground, he's absolutely awful. He does have some okay takedown defense, but if he gets taken down, he's absolutely lost. Whereas Alvin Hines is a very good wrestler, man. He's a high pressure guy. You mentioned he's really aggressive. He's got high pressure, good, really athletic for the division. Like you look at him and you don't think he's that athletic, but he is. The guy is tough. He's athletic. He's pretty fast for his size. He's powerful. He is a little sloppy. On the feet, DS is kind of where I worry because while he is throwing those big barrages, they are a little sloppy. And I just think that if he doesn't mind his P's and Q's, he can get clipped by Jhonata Diniz. So I do agree that if Alvin Hines gets this fight to the ground, it's ball game. He's going to finish Jhonata Diniz or he's going to stay on top of him for the rest of that round and win it. I just don't know if he's going to be able to get it to the ground. So in terms of confidence, dead ass, I'm like 55-45 going Jhonata Diniz, and I have to pick him by knockout, expecting that Hines is going to be too aggressive, come through and get cracked. But again, absolutely not betting it. Absolutely not betting it at these odds. If anything, I'm sprinkling on Alvin Hines because I'm just not sold on Jhonata Diniz. And with Alvin Hines, I just don't think he's refined enough to be able to pick him as far as the striking is concerned. Again, if it gets to the ground, whole different fucking fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like what you just said. That's exactly the key. And I fully agree. I fully agree with your breakdown. Right.
Thank you.
It's just we just ended up at a different place somehow.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the next fight, which is Christopher. Oh, wait, what? Christopher Zuniga?
Yeah.
I thought it was Chris Ewert.
That's what I meant. I'm so sorry. My apologies.
No, that's all good.
Goodness gracious. All right, here we go. Christopher Ewert. You are right.
Yeah, Christopher Ewert versus Jackson McVey. This was supposed to be
SD
Dumas. And what did you say? Go ahead, tell the people.
Nothing, man. I mean, SD Dumas just got locked up again. No, he didn't get locked up. So apparently, and this is rumors. I don't know that this is concrete news, but SD Dumas supposedly forced to pull out of his fight because he's on house arrest and will not be able to see a judge until Thursday to potentially get the ankle monitor removed, and that's way too late. So the UFC brings in Christopher Ewert, which is absolutely wild if that's true, DS. SD Dumas, a guy that's had a lot of legal troubles, and I know we make fun of him a lot, and there's a lot of trash talk in the MMA community about SD Dumas. Maybe it's because of his looks. Maybe it's because of the way that he fights and the opposition that he's fought and the way he's looked against them. So he's kind of become like a meme. He's more popular than he should be in terms of like his fighting skill. But man, I think this is the final straw for SD Dumas, and it's sad because it's a guy that came into the UFC that had some promise, right? Not really bad anywhere, pretty solid everywhere, just does not have his head on his shoulders and, keeps getting himself in trouble.
Yeah, what is there to say, really? Yeah, he's for sure cut, right? Like, I feel like the UFC was throwing him a bone by even giving him this fight. It's not like he's shown much, in the UFC too. He's got a couple wins, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, so obviously two complete newcomers here, right? You've got one guy who was already a relative unknown, and you got another Chilean fellow who's coming in who's completely unknown, essentially. So limited data available on these, especially on Christopher Ewert. But anyway, how do you see it going?
Yeah, so let's start with Jackson McVey, man. Jackson McVey, DS, he's raw, he's dangerous, powerful striker, legit size for the division, man. He's big, he's aggressive. His ground game is still developing, but it's solid enough to get him out of trouble if he ever gets there. He's very serviceable on the ground. He pressures really well, throws with high volume, throws with conviction, is not afraid to get into a brawl. And I really do like that about Jackson McVey. As far as Christopher Ewert, I'm not going to lie to you, saw one fight on YouTube before we hopped on here. Looked at his Tapology, saw the one fight. Looks like he's a decision guy, right? Couple finishes littered on his Tapology record, a couple KOs, but mostly a decision guy. I didn't like one thing particularly that I saw DS, and he comes in and kind of throws these he throws combos in bunches, right? Sort of like that Wei Lee, Juliana Pena kind of swarm forward. And it's like, great, it looks good on the regional scene. How does that translate against guys that are UFC level? I don't know. That's yet to be told, but maybe Jackson McVey's not really UFC level, right? So no odds on this one yet. So we have no idea what the hell Vegas is going to do with it. My guess is that Jackson McVey is going to be a sizable favorite. So I'll go with him, man. TKO. Again, take this with a grain of salt because not too much film was watched on Christopher Ewert. Maybe I'll watch some tonight. And if you guys watch tomorrow on the breakdown with Harry from Pro Schmo Bets, I'll have a little more for you. But give me Jackson McVey, TKO, because fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I really don't know how to pick this fight. Both of these guys are very aggressive, and one thing that you said is Ewert is not a finisher. I mean, he's got one, two, three, he's got 5 knockout finishes in his 7 fights. So, I mean, I think that he is a finisher. One thing that stood out to me in watching him a little bit is that he uses all of his limbs, right? He uses all of his limbs when he's striking. He actually looks to have a pretty refined clinch, right? For somebody who pretty much just turned pro like 2.5 years ago. Obviously, he's undefeated. Both these guys are undefeated. He actually has one more professional fight than Jackson McVey. So look, man, this is 2 very, very aggressive fighters, right? I trust my biggest thing is that Christopher Ewert and all the tape that I've watched on him, and again, there's not that much out there. There's a couple highlight reels and a couple fights that you can see. I've not once seen him on the ground, right? So, and it's not like he's fighting the highest level of competition. It's not bad. His last 2 fights are at Fury. One is last one by decision versus another undefeated guy. Look, to me, it's just the complete unknown of his ground game. Whereas you got Jackson McVey pulling out like Brabo chokes and shit, right? So I just think that's going to be the biggest difference here. There's no way, in my opinion, that a guy with this kind of profile that Christopher Ewert's coming in with has a refined ground game all of a sudden too from Chile, right? It's not like that's some MMA hot hub either. So give me Jackson McVey. I'm gonna stay by second round submission. I think that there's a possibility when you have 2 guys who are inexperienced, who are aggressive, who are going to go for it, who both know how to strike too, and both have some power, 2 big boys. I think this has potential. Look, should it be on a pay-per-view card? Probably not. Absolutely not, to be honest with you. But that's what we're left with. 2 short notice kind of guys stepping in. I think this has the potential to be a fun fight, partially due to the fact that these guys are inexperienced, right? So give me Jackson McVey by submission. I kind of have high hopes for at least a high entertainment value in this fight.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do, DS, I'm going to watch that other Fury fight. I saw the Fury 100 decision. I'll check out the other one after this pod, and then we'll text about it.
Respect, as we do. All right, let's move on to the next fight, which is another banger of a fight. You've got Terrance McKinney. He is taking on Viacheslav Borschev, Slava Claus. Look, man, this is a very interesting fight. To me, this is as far as breaking this down, we know who these guys are, right? Vyacheslav Borschev, Slava Claus, pretty much absolutely nothing on the ground, right? Pretty much absolutely nothing on the ground. Terrance McKinney, for all that he does, and obviously what is he most well known for? We know who he is at this point. He's not like a spring chicken at this point either. We know who Terrance McKinney is. But one thing that's still to this day underrated about his game is the wrestling. So to me, this fight really comes down to Terrance McKinney, right? I think he is the one who's going to dictate how this fight's going to go. Because, again, if he comes out swinging, Borschev is the more refined striker. No, he doesn't have the power that Terrance McKinney has, but he's better at picking his shots. Now, he does get hit sometimes. So I think that Terrance McKinney just has – we know how it goes, man. Either he's going to get a first-round knockout or he's going to finally smarten up and decide to use his grappling or his wrestling against a guy who has such a distinct disadvantage in it here and who is the more refined striker. But again, maybe he's going to throw a few punches. And once you get in there, the adrenaline starts flowing, right? You know you have the power advantage here. And maybe he's going to think, oh, yeah, I do have the wrestling. So if I get dropped, I can just go back to that. It's not like Borschev has some crazy knockout power, but it's the cardio, right? It's the cardio of Terrance McKinney. Is that going to hold up into the second round? I'm going to go with Terrance McKinney, man, because I think if he uses his wrestling, and that's a huge if, he has a fairly easy way to win this fight because of the threat of the power as well. However, if he comes out swinging and does his usual game plan, certainly very live for a knockout. But if we get to a second round and now he's tired and now the grappling and the takedowns aren't going to be as effective, I think we see Borschev win this. So this is one. I don't mind the underdog pick here if you're going to go that route. I will say look out for the live betting on this one. I think if you see Terrance McKinney blow his wad in the first round, there's a good opportunity to win some money on Viacheslav Borschev, probably by decision, but that's what it is. I'm going to go with T-Rex. Not, it's not like a slam dunk for me.
See, I think saying Borschev wins this fight by decision is absolutely crazy because we've never seen Terrance McKinney go anywhere near a decision. One thing I do want to say about Terrance McKinney, Dino, and I know we say this every time he fights.
I just don't trust the power of Slavakov. You know what I mean? I think he's more likely to punch a distance and just pick apart a Terrance McKinney. I guess you're right. I guess he could just fold up completely because when his cardio is gone, it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And look, I said it yesterday, DS, and now I'm kind of rethinking it, right? You look at Terrance McKinney, and it's the same story every damn time. It's either he's going to come out there, he comes out aggressive as hell no matter who he's fighting. He's looking for the finish within the first 3 minutes of the fight. Like, he is actively hunting for it, and if he doesn't get it, he ends up getting finished himself. And that's kind of been the narrative, right? And maybe that's a little unfair because as we look back at his UFC career, and I'm looking back at his first fight, which was Matt Frevola. He beat Matt Frevola. That was like the 10-second, the 6-second knockout. What is that?
Such a good win.
Great win, right? Comes in there, knocks out Matt Frevola in like 6 seconds, blows his knee out, takes some time off, comes back, fights Fares Ziam, beats him. Fares Ziam has been on an absolute tear ever since that. So that is a win that has aged so goddamn well. Then he goes out there, loses to Drew Dober, gets finished. It is what it is. You know what Drew Dober does to folks that don't have the same skin complexion as him, right? Then he comes out there, he fights Eric Gonzalez, a guy that just does not belong in there with Terrance McKinney. Of course, he finishes him. Then he gets back-to-back finish losses, DS, against Ishmael Bonfim, who, for what it's worth, another guy that we kind of talk shit about, but a high-level prospect in his own right. And then Nazim Sadikov, who we just saw this last weekend. Nazim Sadikov looks like a guy that's destined to be in the top 15. Then he beats Mike Breeden, beats Brandon Marat, loses to Esteban Ribovics, and then beats Damir Hadjovic. So it's like he's losing to all these guys that are really, really goddamn good. And then his wins, besides the first two, look like they're against guys that he should be beating. Borschev kind of falls in the middle of those two categories for me. He's not Ribovics.
Right. That's a good point.
He's not Ribovics or Fares Ziam or Drew Dober at that point, but he's not Marat and the rest of these guys, right? So I'm just going to trust Terrance McKinney, but I can't trust him to do more than what I know he does, DS. I do know he is the better wrestler. I just can't trust him to use it. So I'm picking Terrance McKinney by the way that Terrance McKinney wins, which is first round finish, whether that is a sub or a knockout. T-Rex round 1. If not, I'm live betting Slava because I can't bet it if I ain't seen it, brother.
Respect. Yeah, I mean, we have enough data on it at this point, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next fight, which is Viviane Araujo. She is taking on Tracy Cortez. Dino Bebem, how do you see this one going?
There it is. First ladies fight of the night, DS. Vivi versus Tracy Cortez. Let's start with Araujo, man. An aggressive, athletic fighter, fast hands, a willingness to trade. She's really goddamn exciting for as far as, women's fighters are concerned. Throws in bunches, mixes in the occasional takedown. She's really goddamn well-rounded. The thing that hurts Vivi Araujo, besides the age, I guess at this point, she is kind of getting up there in years, is she starts to fade late in fights, which is a bad recipe against a person like Tracy Cortez, who is very difficult to finish. And Tracy Cortez, a notoriously slow starter that gets better as fights go on. Tracy Cortez, in her own right, very well-rounded. Very good striking, very good jiu-jitsu, underrated grappling in general. The thing that she lacks is finishing power, right? She doesn't have that one-shot power or even that KO power in bunches. So that's kind of what scares me with Tracy Cortez. But the way I see this fight playing out is as simple as that. I think Araujo probably takes the first round, slowly starts to fade a little bit, and Tracy Cortez takes over late. So I could see this fight being a split decision, 29-28, either way, split decision. Tracy Cortez is what I'm going with. I think just the fact that she's going to be looking better late in this fight, DS, and this sounds shitty, but the fact that she's just better looking, right? The judges sometimes might go on that. The promotion wants Tracy Cortez to win. I know it sounds absolutely fucking nuts, but in a close fight, they're going to pick the cuter chick. So give me Tracy Cortez by decision.
In a close fight, I'd pick you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, man, I agree with your breakdown. Once again, I'm going to go with Viviane Araujo. You said Tracy Cortez has gotten great strike. I'm not a huge fan of her striking. I'm really not. I think that the power and the overall striking edge is pretty clearly in Araujo's favor here.
I agree with that. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, and look, the conditioning is a huge question mark. Obviously, we've seen it time and time again. She starts to fade, but like her output typically is high enough. And look, we've seen her fight good grapplers before, right? And Tracy Cortez is, to me, exactly what you said, more well-rounded threat overall. I think her best bet is to take this to the ground, especially because it's going to be more taxing on the cardio of Araujo. I don't know, man. Look, I think there's something to be said about the prospect or the popularity, kind of situation of Tracy Cortez and how, she's better looking and all this and, all the memes and whatnot. So if it goes to a close decision, yeah, I could certainly see that. I think this fight could be a pick'em, quite frankly. I think that there's some value. I think there's some value at plus 200 here on Viviane Araujo. I would say she has the better career overall at this point, right? And Tracy Cortez is coming off yet another injury, right? It's not that she hasn't fought high level opponents, she has too, right? And maybe in the last year she's taken the time to improve further, right? She's the younger fighter. I don't know, man. Just for me, it's just something is telling me that I just think that Viviane Araujo is going to do enough to win the first 2 rounds, right? Or the first round and a half, whatever you want to call it, and then be able to at least hold her own in the grappling exchanges later on.
Yeah, one thing again, DS. I'm just worried about the fact that she's almost 39 years old, right? That's not age that we typically see people fight, let alone women. So
for sure, especially at the higher levels of the sport, from a women's perspective. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And look, when we talk about Jack Hermansson and Gregory Rodrigues, I think it's not the same type of breakdown, right? But I think that kind of dynamic applies there as well, right? Yeah. Or even if you want to stay in the co-main event, right? Pantoja, he's 35 at flyweight. It's not the same as being at 35 at heavyweight. We talk about that all the time here. So, we'll get to it, right? But I think there is some of that. So, I don't disagree with you. Cool. Let's move on to the next fight, which is Hyder Amil. He is taking on Jose Delgado. How do you see this one going? Or is this me?
This is you, brother.
Okay, my apologies. Yeah, look, man, Hyder Amil, 3-0 in the UFC, came from the Contender Series, still undefeated. He's got some gritty fights, right? Beat William Gomez, arguable on that fight. He's been an underdog in every single fight that he's had in the UFC thus far. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah. And then we've got Jose Delgado. Look, man, I just got to preface this with I've never been a big Hyder Amil guy. I wasn't high on him on the Contender Series. I've not been high on him in his UFC career thus far. But at the end of the day, man, he is 11-0, right? He's got, is it like the highest level of competition? No, he's got wins over Fernie Garcia, Junyoung Lee, and William Gomez, which was a close decision already. For me, look, we know kind of at this point what Hyder Amil likes to do. The reason that he's gotten the wins that he has is because he thrives in that chaos, right? He's going to want to make it dirty. He's going to want to make it nasty. He's going to try to overwhelm with volume and pressure. He's very durable, right? We haven't, he doesn't look like he's in a lot of trouble. He doesn't look like he's about to be finished at any point, really. Delgado, to me, he's got better range. He's got better footwork. To me, he's got the better striking overall. I think the length is going to pose a real problem. Is going to pose a real problem for Hyder Amil. I know he's kind of a relatively unknown man. I like Delgado. Here. I think ultimately we're going to see a decision win here. I think this is kind of where the Hyder Amil train stops, right? I think Delgado is kind of the real deal, quite frankly. And for me, Hyder Amil, I just don't see him as that good, quite frankly. And to me, as silly as that sounds for this breakdown, that's the biggest thing is I'm just not really a believer in Hyder Amil.
Yeah, look, DS, I'm 100% on board with you, man. I don't think Hyder Amil is that amazing of a fighter. I'll tell you what he is, though. He is goddamn entertaining, and I think this fight has fight of the night written all over it, right? Hyder Amil, that nonstop pressure, that power, the aggression, the never, die attitude. He's going to be pushing forward. The thing that sticks out about Jose Delgado to me is he's so much more crisp, clean. He's just more refined in his striking, and he's not a guy that's going to engage on those terms with Hyder Amil. He's going to stay safe. He's going to stay smart. And I'm not saying that to say he's a boring fighter. He's a very fun fighter as well. I agree with you, man. I think Jose Delgado's length pause is going to cause a lot of issues for Hyder Amil, who, by the way, did lose that William Gomez fight. That's
I thought so too, man.
Just
so
a poor decision. So yeah, give me Jose Delgado. I originally had TKO round 2, but you know what? I'm changing it up. I'll go decision, man. I think this could be a 3-round barn burner of a fight, and I think we do get a potential fight of the night, at least for the prelims. If Hyder Amil somehow wins this fight and, moves on to the next one, of course, they're going to give him someone a little higher ranked than Jose Delgado. DS, it's got to stop really soon. And this isn't a Dricus Duplessis situation where it's like on the way
no
up.
Possibility of that.
That's what I'm saying. His holes are, it sounds terrible. Like, pause again. His holes are way too big to not be exposed, right? Hyder Amil.
Oh.
I know that sounds absolutely fucking nuts, but take it for what it's worth. They're going to be exposed at some point.
Crazy.
I think Delgado does it. If not, somebody else exposing them holes, my boy.
He's just going to be whored out. If not this guy, the next.
Hey,
it's
man.
Crazy.
I'm just saying.
All right. Anyway, let's move on to. I don't know if I said like how. I agree. Decision is how I keep it going. All right, let's move on to the next fight, which is Jack Hermansson. He is taking on Gregory Rodrigues. Is this you? Yes,
this
please
is me.
Go for it.
All right. So if we're talking about exposing holes, guys, look, the hole exposing here happened last time out with Gregory Rodrigues, and it's his cardio, right? We saw him put it to Jared Cannonier, absolutely beating the dog shit out of him. Then, of course, he faded later on in that fight. It was in the 4th round. Now, he's going to come into this fight as the much bigger guy. He's going to come in as the much more powerful guy, the better striker of the two as far as technique is concerned. He's going to lack in the grappling department, right? Very simply, this is a grappler versus a striker, but I don't think it's just that, DS. Jack Hermansson returning here. It's been a while since we've seen him in the cage. Just gritty as hell, man. You talk about a UFC veteran, a guy that's been in the rankings for a long time. Jack Hermansson is the prototypical that guy, right? He's been in the top 10, top 15 of this division forever. He's tough as hell, great submission skills. He gets to the ground. There's very few in this division that can hang with him, unless you are Roman Dolidze and you get that calf slicer on him somehow. Jack Hermansson's tough as hell, man. He doesn't break, he breaks people, DS. So the way I see this fight going with RoboCop, who's a guy that is notoriously kind of finish or be finished, he's going to come out there aggressive as hell, as we know he does. By the way, you didn't do the Brazil Obama Fala Galera thing, so I'm going to pass it to you. I'm going to pass it to you after this to do that. But, he either puts people out or he gets put out, right? That's kind of who Gregory Rodrigues is. Is he dangerous? Yes. But I think Jack Hermansson's just the better all-around MMA fighter, to be honest with you. I know he's getting on in years. I know there might be some ring rust and whatnot. And I do think, DS, if Jack Hermansson had fought recently, if we saw him in January or even December or November, that the odds would be flipped on this fight, that he would be the favorite coming off of a win and RoboCop would be the underdog coming off of a loss. So to me, a guy coming off a loss, a guy coming off, it's really odd to me. I'm going Jack Hermansson. I think he wins this fight by decision. I think it's going to be a fucking banger.
My fellow Americans, right? On this week of International Fighter Week. No, look, man. And one other thing I always say about Gregory Rodrigues, he looks like he wears like mesh shirts, like a tight mesh shirt. Like
he also looks like he's like 52, bro. He's like 32, 33 years old. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, he's got like worn leather kind of complexion going on.
My boy out there looking like a Wilson A2K.
Yeah, by the way, you see my face is beat red. It's because it's hot as balls in my condo right now.
And as you can see, hell behind us. That's why we got these embers going on. We're in Chicago. It's been about 1,000 degrees for
A
5
fucking
straight days.
1,000 degrees, literally.
Yeah.
Look, man, I agree with you. I'm gonna go Jack Hermansson by decision. What I was alluding to kind of earlier, right, is the fact that he is 37 years old at this point, and he has been out for a year and a half. So, which is unfortunate, quite frankly. I think Jack Hermansson is somebody who is good enough still, and it's not like he has a lot of time left. So I would have liked to see him be a little bit more active, but it is what it is. Rodriguez's biggest thing is the cardio, right? Like you said. And also, quite frankly, dude, he's very hittable. And Jack Hermansson's not gonna knock you out, right? But he's gonna annoy you. He's gonna thick and move, and he's like he is so smart with how he fights. He's one of the smartest fighters in the UFC, in my opinion. His top control is really good. Oh, that's good. But yeah, I mean, you know what I mean? There is a possibility he has a lot more experience. There is a possibility here that he simply hit a cliff, right? I just don't see it. He looked pretty damn good in his last fight out, fighting a guy who is just as dangerous on the feet as Gregory Rodrigues is. Now, maybe Gregory Rodrigues is a little bit better in the jiu-jitsu. I don't know. That's arguable.
Let me just ask you a quick question, DS. I
Yeah,
know MMA math is not mathing, right? It don't be mathing, most of the time.
sure.
If the fight was happening on Saturday, Gregory Rodrigues or Joe Pyfer, who are you taking? I'm
Joe
taking
Pyfer.
Joe Pyfer.
I'm taking Joe Pyfer.
You know,
I think in that fight, the biggest difference would be that Gregory Rodrigues is much too hittable.
Yeah.
And I think
Power,
Pyfer
yeah.
would connect for sure.
Right.
So, and then Gregory Rodrigues, dude, he gets chinned and he gets a little, fucking starts hitting the stanky leg a little bit. So I don't think the chin is that great. And especially when you're low on cardio, man, there's something to be said about getting even, taking a clean flush shot that's not that much power. So, man, I trust the grappling of Hermansson more. On the feet, yes, RoboCop certainly always live for a knockout. He also tends to overswing at times. And, with a guy with not great cardio, that's kind of a recipe. Like I think this fight is tailor-made for Jack Hermansson to win again. So I think Jack Hermansson is the key here, unless he's completely fallen off a cliff in the last year and a half. 185, right? I think there's still an opportunity here. So I'm going to go, I agree with you. I'm going to go Jack Hermansson by decision. I'm really looking forward to this one. I like Jack Hermansson, man. He is like the definition of like a European dad to me now, where like he's going to fuck with you. He's going to bother you. And like, he's so smart. Like he's going to stay out of trouble for the most part. Whereas Gregory Rodrigues is like almost the opposite of him, right? Where he's super aggressive. He's got a lot of power, but he's very hittable and the cardio is not great. So,
yeah. One thing I said yesterday in the quick picks DS is I compared Jack Hermansson to Aljamain Sterling in terms of the striking. Now, while their striking style isn't similar at all, they're both grapplers that are very awkward on the feet, right?
they almost have their own style.
That's what I'm saying. And it's not very dangerous. It's not very powerful, but it's effective in getting them to where they want to be, which is either to the grappling or way out of range so that they can't be hit. Yeah, I love me some Jack Hermansson. One of my favorite dogs on this card. Little foreshadowing. There's a couple more I like coming up.
Maybe we agree on this next fight then, which is Payton Talbot versus Felipe Lima. Actually, I didn't realize that Payton Talbot is the underdog. I'm gonna be quite real with you right here, my boy. Look, Payton Talbot, Frank Ocean's boyfriend, once seen as somebody who's like the new Sean O'Malley, basically, right? He's got kind of a similar look. He's got the little weird tattoo and stuff, and he's got all that going on. The loss to Hany Barcelos, right? Not only did he lose and kind of it and Hany Barcelos, let's be real, man. Hany Barcelos, even at this age, is still a very good fucking UFC fighter. Let's be honest there. But his defensive grappling didn't look great. His general awareness, and then something that like is like a DS special, and I always talk about this. He looked to kind of quit, right? He looked to quit in the fight, and that's something that for me is like so hard to get past. But I will give you this disclaimer, Dino Bam Bam, is that he is so young, where I'm willing to forgive that to some extent, right? He is the more dynamic striker here, right? I think if this just stays on the feet, I think he is so dynamic. But like it's like I don't think he's getting too big for his britches in a way, right? Where I think he's gotten a little too cocky with his striking and I think all the praise and everything, and he did look unbelievable. Let's think back to the last couple fights before the Hany Barcelos fight. He looked fucking unbelievable, especially in the striking. Um, you just can't believe your own hype too soon, man. So for me, the biggest difference here is like Felipe Lima, he's well rounded, right? But the grappling, he's really good in the grappling, right? You saw in the fight versus Naimov and in the fight versus Johns, he was able to mix things up. The striking is decent enough, and the grappling is really good. So to me, if he can get the takedown, get the control, I think he can win this fight. Now, it is a big step up, man. You know, Payton Talbot is a prospect. It is a big step up. I mean, this is one of the harder ones on the card for me, man, because like, is that such a glaring weakness of Talbot, or did he just kind of have enough? Because he was clearly losing that fight. He's a young fighter. Maybe he got in his head a little bit. We've seen that. We see that in every sport, right? You see that in baseball. Prospects come up, they start fucking doing shit. They get hot, and then they start doing shit for an extended period of time. And it's like, I'm gonna go with Talbot, man. I'm gonna go with Talbot. I just think the striking is so dynamic. And also, look, another thing that we always say is like, when you're so fucking young, right? Like, you should be making massive stride. And like, when also, not only when you're so fucking young, but also like when you got exposed in such a specific part of the game, and both of these guys are young, right? But I don't know, man. This one's so 50-50 for me. I'm going to go with Payton Talbot by decision, but this one is very 50-50 to me. Do you trust it? Do you think that the Talbot exposure was so real that he is so bad in the grappling and that he just can't, he'll be dominated there? If you do, Felipe is your boy. If you really believe that he's such a dynamic striker where he's so special, he's actually special in the striking, Talbot is, then I think Talbot's your boy. I might change my pick on this one. Before, I was going to say Felipe, to be honest with you, but something in me right now is telling me Talbot. I really am curious to see what you have to say about it, though.
Yeah, man, I'm going the opposite way, DS. I'm going Felipe Lima for a couple of reasons, man. First and foremost, let me just talk about Felipe Lima. I think he is a prospect that is flying super under the radar, man. I think this kid has high level written all over him. I think he has stardom written all over him. He's legit, man. He's well rounded. He's sharp on the feet. His combinations are crispy. The grappling gets mixed in beautifully. He's composed. He's smart. He fights like a veteran. Now, while Talbot is more of a thrive in the chaos, kind of knock you out kind of guy, Felipe Lima fights so much more composed than that. And I think that was kind of the problem that Payton Talbot faced last time out, fighting a veteran. Now, I understand that Raoni Barcelos is, many years older than Felipe Lima and that much more experienced, but that's the way Felipe Lima fights. DS, to me, Felipe Lima at this point is everything I wanted to see out of Payton Talbot, and maybe then some. And then that last performance from Talbot definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. And you go back and you look at the resume from when we've seen it, right? I'm talking about the Contender Series moving forward. He beat Reyes Cortez in a decision on the Contender Series, which, looking back on it, who the fuck is Reyes Cortez, right?
Nobody.
Comes to the UFC, wins 3 in a row. Nick Aguirre, no longer here. Giannis Gamuri, absolutely terrible, potentially the worst fighter in the division. And Cameron Simon, who is a very sad story in his own right, a guy that fell off a cliff who got cut, I believe, right? So Cameron Simon, not really that good of a win. Then you flip it on the other side and you look at Felipe Lima's resume, and he beat Muhammad Naimov and Miles Johns. Are those the best guys on the planet? No, but they are guys that are legitimately here to stay in the UFC. They are mid-caliber UFC guys. So that kind of sticks out to me. As far as Payton Talbot's concerned, I just think he might be coming back in here too soon after getting fraud checked and exposed, DS. What happens if you're on a 2-fight losing streak now? You lose to Felipe Lima. He takes so much star power from you on a massive card here. He becomes the prospect that everybody's looking for. I think Payton Talbot's going to need to take some time out if he loses this fight. I don't want to see him for another year, man. I'm trusting Felipe Lima. I think this kid is being overlooked by the MMA community. Clearly, the odds makers don't think so. But I just think this is a name that the UFC community, the MMA community is really going to get to know if they don't know already. This kid is legit. He is undersized. He is short for Payton Talbot, and that's the thing that worries me in this fight. I think it'll be fun. We'll learn a lot about both guys in this one.
For sure. And again, to your casual fan, right? Like you said, chances are they know Payton Talbot, right? Because of the hype, because of the Frank Ocean stuff, whatever.
What is the Frank Ocean thing? Is that real?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He was like his muse in like a music video. I mean, I don't know if he's gay or whatever, which here at 10,000 MMA, we believe that you should do whatever you want to do with your life. And we don't feel any particular way about it because it doesn't fucking matter to us or affect us. But God bless you. But yeah, no, like that was legit. But you know, are you thinking now because of your association with these stars that you're like some fucking like focus on your credit, right? Like because if he's not, everything that I'm like my flip of the pick is with the assumption that he's building on the very, very impressive stuff that we saw in the first couple fights in the UFC, right? If he's out here, you know, fucking dilly-dallying with Frank Ocean and shit and like these like celebrities, I feel very differently about that, right? But anyway, let's move on. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. We have got Beneil Dariush, your countryman, or, you know, cultureman, whatever you want to call it. He's taking on Renato Moicano. How do you see this one going, brother? I know these are two of your boys.
Hey, DS, look, we broke this fight down back in January, right? This was supposed to happen on that January pay-per-view. Of course, we had the whole Arman Tsarukyan situation. He ended up pulling out due to, you know, fucking stretching too hard with Nina or whatever the fuck the case was. And Renato Moicano was offered that fight at about 5 in the morning, showed up to weigh-ins. Both of these men made 155. Moicano went on to face Islam. Beneil got a fucking paycheck, and that was that. He didn't get to fight. It's really unfortunate for Beneil Dariush because he's another guy that we haven't seen in the cage in a really long time. And there is this narrative going around DS that Beneil Dariush is over the hill, right? He's a guy that's always looked older than his age. These two guys are the same exact age. So they are literally
within like 2 weeks.
Yeah, so they are, you know, right there. And that plays into a little bit of the jokes that Moicano.
And not only that, you know, they're like 2 fights apart.
Right. And what's funny is
almost identical. 22-6-1 for Dariush, 26-1 for Moicano.
Yeah. So here's the way I'm seeing this fight. I see it the same way I saw it last time, man. The knock on Beneil Dariush was that he's been knocked out twice in a row. Let's not forget who he fought. Charles Oliveira, who's fighting for the title on this same card, and Arman Tsarukyan, the guy that was supposed to fight for the title back in January, who's ranked number 1 in the goddamn division. So 2 of the top 3 guys, any way you want to slice it, in this division is who he got knocked out by. And Renato Moicano lost to Islam Makhachev, you know, his last time out as well in about a minute and a half. For what it's worth, he looked pretty damn good in those first like 40 seconds against Islam. You know,
he looked really good. Yeah,
made it seem like we were about to get a fight. You know what I mean? But look, DS, when it comes to the striking, Beneil Dariush is the better striker here. He's the more powerful striker, that's for sure. He's going to be bigger than Renato Moicano. He's more powerful. He's stronger than Renato Moicano. And I think where Renato Moicano's advantages lie against most of his opponents are in the jiu-jitsu. While he is a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner, let's not forget Beneil Dariush is a former jiu-jitsu world champion. This is a guy that came into the UFC exclusively as a grappler. Maybe fans, you know, of recent years don't know that about him, but that's what Beneil is. He's a grappler at heart. He's just been throwing hands since the since the Apex days started, right? So I'm gonna trust Beneil Dariush, as you mentioned, my fellow countryman, my fellow culture man, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I'm picking Benny Dariush, man. Renato Moicano, DS, loses to the guys that are top of the food chain. If you look at his career, those are the only guys he loses to. He lost to Rafael Fiziev for what that's worth, and maybe Fiziev is, you know, I always thought of him as a top of the food chain guy, and he looked great this last weekend. So I think Beneil Dariush has always been top of the food chain, at least for the last 7-8 years. He's been in the top 5, top 10 of this division. I'm sticking with Benny Dariush. I think there's good value here and plus money. I think the matchup is just bad for Renato Moicano. He's not going to be able to take Dariush down, so I think this fight stays on the feet. So give me Beneil Dariush. I'm going round 2 TKO, right hand, overhand right.
Yeah, look, man, I think I like everything pretty much that you said. I think that Beneil Dariush is in the entire promotion one of the most underrated fighters. I really do, man. You know, even at his advanced age, I hate that we're saying that. I guess as we approach Unk status, right? You got these two Unks fighting. Look, Moicano, I know, is the trendy pick, right? You know, he's a yapper and he's made himself a lot of money, and credit to him and kudos to him for doing that, right? I think Beneil Dariush is very clearly the better striker, right? Even though Renato Moicano, you know, Muay Thai black belt, whatever you want to say, you know, his striking is improving. I just think that technically, and especially for MMA and the ability, like we've seen Moicano, like Benoit Saint Denis, right? Like he gassed, right? He started gassing, and then all of a sudden the tide turned. I just don't see that happening versus Dariush. Now, let's he's gotten knocked out 2 times in a row. There was a time where he was on an 8-fight win streak against the very best of this division, right? And it wasn't that long ago. For whatever reason, and even for me, like, yeah, I knew they were the same age, but Beneil Dariush just feels like the older fighter. Also, I think like the gray hair doesn't help, and that's just a fucking genetic human mutation. Like that's not like anything, that's gonna physically affect him. The chin is a question mark, but is Moicano the one to test that chin? Beneil Dariush is the better wrestler. He's the better striker. I agree with it, man. I think he's gonna win. I'm gonna say by decision. I think there's an opportunity to be a good fight here. I could see it being a boring fight too, to be quite honest with you. This one is a question mark for me. I could see this fight. I could see many different outcomes, right? And it's not the highest confidence pick for me, but I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna go with Dariush by decision here.
Yeah, I think it's the right pick, DS. Either way, even if, Renato Moicano shows up at his best, it's just, does he have the power that you need to have to beat Beneil Dariush? To me, he doesn't have the takedowns. He doesn't have the power. So I get it. I get why people are picking Moicano. You mentioned he's the trendier guy. We just saw him in a world title fight against Islam Makhachev. Beneil's been kind of missing in action, but either way, I think this is a banger. I think this is 2 top 10 level guys at lightweight and 2 veterans for what it's worth. 2 guys that know how to survive and 2 guys that know how to put on a damn good fight anywhere the fight goes.
For sure. I do just want to mention one more thing. It's I don't love when fighters start talking about retirement, right?
Yeah.
And Beneil, and so like the motivation levels externally, right, seem very different. It's the fact that Moicano is like, I want to get this money, my brother, and all this shit. Like he's forced, like he's doing all the he's so much more involved in MMA. Where now you don't hear about Beneil Dariush. You don't hear about Beneil Dariush until all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, he's fighting on this card, right? So, maybe there's some of that, and it's like Beneil, like God, there's times where you're like, oh, he's about to whoop this guy's ass, and then he comes out flat, right? And then there's times where you're like, man, I don't think it's gonna be a good night at the office for him. And he comes out, he's whooping ass, and he's throwing with power.
I mean, DS, real quick. I mean, here's how I see it right now. We might be taking too much time here, but the last 2 fights for Beneil Dariush are the fights he looked flat in. The Charles Oliveira fight, he looked so goddamn flat, which was crazy. Which was absolutely
his worst performance, period, ever.
Yeah, I agree with you. The Arman Tsarukyan fight, we never even got to see what was going to happen. He got caught in like 40 seconds, so we don't know how that fight was going to play out, but I think Beneil Dariush at this point is coming in against a caliber of fighter. Like those guys are ahead of him, right? Charles Oliveira, former champion, he's still fighting for the title. Arman Tsarukyan ascending. Like Arman Tsarukyan is a potential future champion. And I'm talking about within the next 8 to 10 months, right? So that's a guy that was on the rise. Renato Moicano is never going to get there. So I think him and Beneil Dariush are kind of at the same place.
I think after what happened with it, like he got his chance, right? I think he knew that was it.
Yeah.
So now he's just doing like his rounds and yapping, and good for him, dude.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's move on to an absolute banger of a fight, man. Brandon Royval taking on Joshua Van, and I guess this one's me, right?
Yep.
Dude, this is another one. Like, I hate that I'm getting all the ones where like I'm so unsure because, okay, look, Joshua Van, maybe the best prospect in the entire UFC. I've liked him from the get-go. I'll tell you if there's a prospect that I wasn't high on, like Gene Silva, for example. For whatever reason, I wasn't a believer initially. I don't know, wasn't sold. Joshua Van is somebody that I saw the boxing, I saw how tight he keeps the guard. Just super, super fucking crisp. Looks like a veteran. He is so calculated. Like Brandon Royval is the one that's going to make this wild, right? He's going to be the one that's trying to make this fight wild. So you've got the 23-year-old rising contender on a 4-fight fucking win streak. Yeah, we saw him get knocked out by Charles Johnson, our boy. Shout out to CJ.
Shout out Energy.
Hashtag Skullet Gang. Man, he's looked really fucking good. He knocked out Bruno Silva in his last fight. Now, it was just 2 weeks ago, right? And look, bro, let's be real. Brandon Royval was all but the very top of this division, right? He's always there. He's going to continue to be there. He seemed to have kind of like shifted a little bit in his mentality and his tried to kind of become a little bit more calculated too. I just don't see him doing that versus somebody like Joshua Van. The knock on Joshua Van is that he's a slow starter, right? He's a slow starter. So is somebody like Royval going to be able to expose that and win the first round or two with just a higher activity level? And he is a very active fighter. He's the rangier fighter, right? He's fucking nuts. Like he makes the fight nuts. He throws elbows, knees. Like he's just a wild fight. They're such different fighters, right? Like Joshua Van, the younger fighter, you never see that. Like he pressures in his own way, right? He's not going to back down. He's got really good takedown defense. I don't know, man. Like I keep going back and forth, right? Royval's the more proven guy. He's fought for a title. Van is so fast and like the leg kicks are so good and the boxing is man, I would be willing to say that he's got the best technical boxing in the entire division at this point. So now this is his second fight in what 3 weeks. So I don't know. I kind of feel like he's so young. Like you're 23 fucking years old. You can do this type of shit, right?
Yeah.
And if it was a veteran, maybe I would feel not as good about it. But the fact that he's so fast with his hands, he's got the takedown defense. For me, it's either like Royval's going to get the decision here. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with Van. I'm going to go with Josh Van. I know he's a slight favorite here. I would expect Royval to be the favorite, to be honest with you. It's kind of crazy to me that Joshua Van is not. But that goes to show you even what Vegas thinks about him. I think that he's just going to be a little bit too clean and too crisp, man. And I don't see Royval. I think Royval's going to get frustrated at some point. I don't think he's going to be able to. Let me put it to you this way. Let me take a step back. And I'm sorry if I'm a little bit long-winded here, but I think this is going to be all about who is going to be able to implement their style of fight, right? And I think Joshua Van is much, much less likely to be drawn into a crazy kind of Brandon Royval style fight than the other way around. And I think if we see it become a Joshua Van style fight where it's calculated and you know a very technical style fight and he's defending the takedowns, I think Brandon Royval is going to get frustrated and he's not going to be able to land as many shots as he needs to be able to win this fight.
All right.
So I'm going to go Joshua Van by decision. It's not a super high confidence pick.
All right, so check this out, DS. I was looking at Tapology, and when you click on Josh Van, you know, it gives you like the rankings, like the number 12 flyweight in the world, and like this and that. They have a list on Tapology of it's a ranking of all-time fighters, and it says the top fan favorite MMA fighters of all time. Josh Van at 35, which was really goddamn surprising, sandwiched in between number 34 Shavkat Rakhmonov
Whoa.
and number 36, Jorge Masvidal. And I was like, God damn.
Whoa.
The MMA community absolutely fucking loves them some Josh Van. And what is there to not love, right? The kid is fun. He's exciting. He's got a great style. The boxing, as you mentioned, so goddamn crisp. I picked Charles Johnson by finish in that fight, and it was nice to see a friend of the channel and CJ, you know, put the hands on him, and I'm always excited for a Charles Johnson win. But I thought maybe that would derail Josh Van a little bit, but it didn't, man.
Not at all.
He bounced back, and the criticism I had of him at that point was, dude, you're going too fast for your own good. Like, you're going to burn the fuck out. And it hasn't seemed to be the case, right? Josh Van comes in there. He's fun. He's exciting. He wins fucking fights. And besides that hiccup, he's looked phenomenal, man. He did just fight 3 weeks ago. Great performance against a great fighter. And DS, the fans are on board with Josh Van right now. And this line has tightened, by the way. It started as Brandon Royval plus 200, which is fucking bananas, dude.
That's nuts.
Absolutely crazy. To me, though, DS, I don't see it, dude. I love me some Josh Van. I think he's exciting. I think he's a guy who's going to be in the top 10 of this division for a really, really long time. I think he's just chewing off way more than he can handle right now.
It's very possible.
Dude, Brandon Royval, if he's not number one in this division, he's number two in this division. There is a clear hierarchy, and it's Alexandre Pantoja is the champion. And I think Brandon Royval is right there with Brandon Moreno, man. So I think it's 1 and 2, those guys, and I think it's just too quick for such a young fighter to be facing a guy that is so skilled, so goddamn well-rounded. I think Brandon Royval wins this fight, to be honest with you, DS, however he wants, and I think he's going to go to the grappling, which is going to be the hole in Josh Van's game that he's going to expose. So give me Brandon Royval, RNC round 2.
You think he's able to take down Josh Van?
Yeah. Brandon Royval's a motherfucker, bro. He is an absolute motherfucker. This guy he's legit, dude. And I think it's just too much for a young fighter right now.
Yeah.
He's going to call
I
out
don't
the winner
disagree
of the
with you, man.
co-main event, by the way.
Huh?
He's going to win this fight and call out the winner of the co-main event.
As he should.
Yeah.
As he should. You know, flyweights in like that weird pattern now where like they just keep recycling each other, and it's unfortunate. So I think for the division, it would be best if Josh Van won because it wouldn't hurt Brandon Royval as much as it would benefit Josh Van. But
Well, you know what you do, DS? If Brandon Royval wins this fight and Alexandre Pantoja, who we're about to get to on this next fight, if they both win, give Pantoja the opportunity to fight Merab, man. Or the winner of Merab and Sandhagen at least, right? I think if Merab
any
were
champ has deserved a champ fight, it's certainly Pantoja.
Yeah, let's get to that fight. I got a lot to say about him.
Okay. All right. So obviously, next fight on the card is Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France.
Yeah. So
you want to go first?
I do, DS. So I'll just start it off. Look, man, to me, Alexandre Pantoja is one of the most disrespected, underappreciated champions that I've seen in the UFC in a very goddamn long time. We've both been watching this sport forever, and I can't remember a time that I've seen a champion this disrespected, I guess, since Mighty Mouse, right? Maybe it is the whole 125-pound thing, but Alexandre Pantoja is number 9. He's number 9 in the UFC's pound-for-pound rankings. He is
unbelievable.
Which is fucking...
the division twice. 3 times in some cases.
That's what I'm saying, right? So Alexandre Pantoja deserves to be number 3 or 4. Like, he is in the top 5, and I think he's in the top 3. I think the way you do it now with John Jones gone is Islam Makhachev number 1, Merab Dvalishvili 2. Then you have an argument between Pantoja and the guy we're going to see next in Ilia Topuria at number 3. Maybe you round it out with Dricus or whoever the hell else is next.
I fully agree with that.
Pantoja's got to be right there, man. But anywho, he's so goddamn good, DS. I love me some Pantoja. He's absolute chaos when he fights. So well-rounded, so underappreciated in every aspect of MMA. He's such a good striker. He is such a dangerous grappler, as we saw last time out versus Kai Asakura. Showed that against an explosive guy, he's not afraid. He's going to stand in the fire and swing with him. Did that with Brandon Moreno on multiple occasions. The cardio holds up for him every time. And if it gets to the ground, he scrambles like nobody else in the entire promotion. Alexandre Pantoja is an absolute problem. He's taken on Kai Kara-France, a guy that he has fought previously on The Ultimate Fighter maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Pantoja won that fight by decision, by the way. Kai Kara-France, a really crisp striker with some serious damn pop in his hands, especially for this division. He looks like he might be pound for pound the most powerful guy in terms of punch power in this division. Great timing, DS. He's quick, he's accurate, he's dangerous, he's explosive early on in fights, and then as we tend to get later on in fights, he sort of slows down, and that's where we saw, you know, the problems with Amir Albazi and the problems with Brandon Moreno, even though he won the Amir Albazi fight. But his takedown defense has been tested, and it's not phenomenal, DS. So I think there's a very clear path for Alexandre Pantoja in this one. It's wrestle, because you're the better wrestler. You're going to get it to the ground. You're the better jiu-jitsu practitioner. He should win this fight by submission. If you're picking Kai Kara-France, you're doing nothing more than picking against the fact that, or if you're picking Kai Kara-France, you're basically picking him because either you think he's going to catch Pantoja, so just a shot in the dark, a Hail Mary shot, or you think this 35 curse thing is real, and that's the only reason you're picking Kai Kara-France. I'm going Pantoja, and still, I think he gets a submission in the 3rd round.
That's exactly what I had written down too. I think he gets a submission of the 3rd round. I think we're going to see a pretty competitive fight for the first 2 rounds, and both these guys have decent cardio. I think Pantoja, again, 35, right? And this is the absolute lightest weight class for men in the UFC, right? So, you know, it's possible that there's a wall that he's hit. I just don't see it, man. He's a guy who's shown absolutely no sign of slowing down. Like, he's shown. Like, I got to see at least a little something to say that, right? It wouldn't be fair to say that. He's so fucking durable. His cardio's unbelievable. He's able to mix it up. He doesn't have a flaw, except, I guess, if you want to say he doesn't have like one punch knockout power, right? But it's flyweight. And sure, Kai Kara-France has great power, but I don't see it, man. I just think that, you know, Kai Kara-France, for what it's worth, is a blue belt, okay? Pantoja is an elite fucking black belt in right. Jiu-Jitsu, right? Like,
and I like that you use the word elite there, because there is a difference between just a fucking black belt and what Pantoja is. There is a big difference.
Exactly. Like, and it's not like his use of jiu-jitsu he's gonna take your fucking back, dude. Like he's gonna take his back. Like it's not like he's going to take his back. I can almost promise you that. Like he will find a way to take Kai France's back. I think Kai France does have a lot of power. It's not I think he does have a lot of power. The Steve Ersteg win, obviously very impressive. Like he's at the top of this division. Like there's nothing new I'm going to tell you about Kai France. You know that I love Kai France. Like he's one of my favorite fighters in this division. It's such a good division. So like you have to understand, right? Like this is something I want to touch on. This is something that we don't talk about a lot. The differences in skill level are amplified in a division like flyweight, right? Where the speed is so different. It's the slight differences, and I don't think there's a slight difference in the jiu-jitsu, for example, here, are much more amplified than they are at light heavyweight, even middleweight to some extent, right? So to me, man, I think both these guys are obviously very good. I just don't see Kai Karf. I don't see him knocking him out. I don't see a way he's winning this fight. So I agree with you, man. Give me Pantoja by a third round submission. RNC probably most likely. He's gonna take his back.
Yeah. I mean, DS, again, I think with Kai France, it's literally going to come down to, can you land the one big shot that puts Pantoja out? He does have the power to put anybody in this.
I can't even like muster that visual.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds weird and it sounds shitty. I just don't see Kai France with a belt in the UFC. Like that visual doesn't make sense to me. So I think Pantoja wins this. I agree with you. I think Pantoja wins this fight, DS. What I would like to see next would be potentially Merab Dvalishvili, potentially the winner of Merab versus Sandhagen, if that's what we're doing next. I think Alexander Pantoja deserves it. He's a guy that kind of, he's the only champion, DS, and we've mentioned this so many times. And I guess Islam we can kind of remove from the situation at this point because he was the only other example. But it's the champions that deserve to go up for double champ status seem to be the ones that don't really chase it and don't go after it. And Alexander Pantoja, such a humble guy. We know his story about the Uber driving and the whole situation growing up fatherless and his dad left them and all this shit. And it's like, dude, he didn't ask for a double champ shot. He didn't ask for custom shorts. He actually turned them down because he thought it was like, like he doesn't want to be too braggadocious or anything until they kind of forced his hand this time. So a guy that it's easy to root for, Kai France, also a guy that's easy to root for, a guy that's been down on his luck. But yeah, I'm rooting for Pantoja, and I hope they give him that opportunity. I think more than likely he gets the winner of Royval versus your boy Josh Van.
Yeah, point blank, probably the most underrated fighter of this generation. And I just want to say one thing that seems very obvious. His fucking record is 29-5.
Yeah.
29-5. Okay. He is on a 1, 2, 3. He's on a 7-fight win streak. I'm just going to go through the names briefly. Asakura, Erceg, Royval, Moreno, Perez, Royval, Cat.
Wow. The top of the division.
I mean, anyway, let's move on, brother, to the main event of the evening. We, of course, have Ilia Topuria. He is taking on Charles Oliveira.
DS, real quick. I just mentioned Josh Van being number 35 on that fan favorite list of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think Charles Oliveira falls on it?
Of all time?
Yeah.
All-time UFC fighters?
All-time fan favorite UFC fighters.
Top 3?
He's number 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to say number 1. I just didn't want to
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. Look at the memes. Look, like everybody wants Charles Oliveira to win this fight. I think few on this world and this planet more than you. And obviously we'll get to you here in a second. Look, I don't really have a lot to say about these guys, right? Like we know who Ilia Topuria is. He cleaned out the very top of a very tough division with some of the best fighters in the world. And did it in a dominant fashion, right? And now he's moving up a weight class. So to me, and quite frankly, I don't have a lot to say about this, man. I think Charles Oliveira is the better jiu-jitsu practitioner. And yes, he's a former champion, but I think that's kind of where it starts and ends for Charles Oliveira as far as on paper advantages here go. Ilia Topuria is the better wrestler. Ilia Topuria, no, his boxing is maybe the best in the entire promotion. He's got legitimate power, and he doesn't need to wind up. He doesn't need to wind up. He can throw you technical strikes, straights, and hooks to knock you out. Charles Oliveira is going to be the bigger guy here, right? Don't forget, this is, of course, Topuria moving up. So if it was a less disciplined fighter, right? If it was a guy, he's a fucking superstar, bro. He's a goddamn superstar, okay? If it was a guy who wasn't as dedicated to his craft as Ilia Topuria obviously is, whether you like him or you hate him, or you love him or you don't, right? You cannot take away the fact that this man is fucking unbelievable. He doesn't have a weakness in his game. He downloads information. He lands with power, convincingly, technically. He's got the ground game. He's an unbelievable wrestler. Like, he doesn't have a fucking weakness, man, right? Like, I guess the one question mark is like, will that power translate as much to a slightly heavier weight class, right? And again, yeah, to the average person, it might be, oh, it's 10 fucking pounds. Yeah, it's 10 pounds at the very top, right? It's like an elite runner trying to shave off 10 seconds or a half a second off their fucking mile or their sprint. It's not the same as you or me trying to shave off a fucking several seconds off our shit because we're fat and slow, right? So my point here is these are two guys at the very top of the sport. I just don't see a way. As much as I want it to happen, I just don't see a way where Charles Oliveira is going to win this. Like, if it's going to stay on the feet, I think he has absolutely no shot, right? Like, he doesn't have the power. Charles Oliveira, as far as the striking goes, he does have power. I'm sorry, I take that back. He does have power. We've seen people talk about it. He's got sneaky power, but his main means of implementing that power is counter striking. And Ilia Topuria is not going to get caught by some crazy counter shot by Charles Oliveira. I just don't see it, man. Unfortunately, I think Ilia Topuria is going to knock Charles Oliveira out in the second round. I do. I think that's how it's going to go. As much as I want to see Charles win, man, I can't visualize a way for it to happen.
Yeah, Diaz. Look, I'm again, to me, I think that this Ilia Topuria situation is the most interesting story in all of MMA. Honestly, a guy that is undefeated. He's trying to become the first person in UFC history to become an undefeated double champ, which is a wild ass fucking thing to have.
Difficult weight class.
Yeah, at two, probably the best two weight classes in the promotion, honestly.
Skill, pound for pound skill, yeah.
Absolutely. And DS, just a couple things about Ilia Topuria as far as the resume is concerned, man. If he goes out there and beats Charles Oliveira, and of course, if he does it convincingly in a finish, which is, what a lot of people are projecting here, that is going to be the best 3-fight streak I've ever seen, I think, in the entire history of MMA. I mean, to knock out Alexander Volkanovski, to knock out Max Holloway, and then to knock out or submit Charles Oliveira, whatever the case is going to be bananas. I do want to say a couple things as far as what you mentioned in terms of, the skills and the advantages that both fighters have. I agree wholeheartedly with you. I don't think there's too much that I can add to that, or really that anyone can add to that. The one thing I will say, this is going to be the first time in Ilia Topuria's career, at least according to Charles Oliveira, where he's going to fight somebody that's willing to come into him, that is going to meet him in the middle of the cage, and that will not back up. Ilia Topuria notoriously pushes forward, gets people backing up, does a great job at finding those finishes behind the black line, right? That is where Ilia Topuria is stupidly fucking dangerous. And Charles Oliveira refuses to be put there, or so he says. He says he's going to meet him in the middle. He's the lion of this division, and he's going to show Ilia Topuria that there's levels to this shit. So a very interesting fight on paper, man. We're going to get to see how that style fares for both of these guys. Now, what I do want to mention about Ilia Topuria, DS, he's kind of putting me in a position where I can't not believe in him, right? He says what he's going to do. He goes out there and he does it. Said he was going to knock out Volk. He went out there and did it. Said he was going to be the first man to knock Max down. He did it. Said he was going to knock Max out. He did it. He said he was going to start that fight by pointing to the center of the cage and willing to exchange with Max, a la fucking Max versus Gaethje, and he did it, man. He does everything he says he's going to do. He says he's going to come out there and he's going to put out Charles Oliveira. At first, he was saying, I'm going to sub him because, he feels bad for Charles Oliveira. And then if you watched Embedded, he was cracking pads, looking unbelievable. And he just looks at the camera and he goes, poor Charles. Like, poor Charles. Yeah, I'm putting his lights out. And Ilia Topuria is speed running the UFC. He's speed running Legacy. And he is speed running this super villain arc that, like, we've never seen in the fucking UFC. So I have no choice but to believe him. I think he puts Charles Oliveira out. I'm going to say round 1 DS. I see this fight playing out very similarly to how Oliveira and Gaethje played out, a fight that I was at, and just that it's going to be fucking chaos for 3 to 4 minutes until Ilia Topuria finds the finish. Now, in terms of who I'm rooting for, I am a diehard Charles Oliveira fan. You know that. Everybody that knows me knows that. Not very fond of Ilia Topuria because of what he did to my favorite fighters, Volk and Max, and now it looks like he's going to do it to Charles. But man, I'm starting to kind of like turn and feel like, man, I got to root for this guy, right? Because it's like, until when? Until when can you do this? He says he's going to fucking beat Charles Diaz, and then this kid has the audacity to say, if Islam wins at 170, I'm fucking going up there because this motherfucker's not running away from me. Balls of steel on this kid. He's going to be so goddamn undersized at 170. Islam Makhachev, a massive 55er. He's going to be pretty big for 170. So I'm interested in the Ilia Topuria line. I think he puts Charles Oliveira out cold. And for what it's worth, Diaz Oliveira's family, there's been rumors that they didn't want Charles Oliveira to take this fight in fear of his health. So that scares me if Team Oliveira's a little worried about it. What the fuck can we do, you know? So Ilia Topuria, I think he becomes the first ever undefeated double champ.
Yep.
This is his game, man.
Maybe that wakes something up in Charles, though, man. Because there's something about your family being like genuinely, like not even like with motive, just like, oh, we don't want you to get hurt. Like, what the fuck? I'm a goddamn.
I hurt people, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tough. It's going to be a tough watch.
It's going to be a big card, man. Looking forward to this fight and many of the other fights on this card. Finally, like a big card. Obviously, it's International Fight Week. We're going to continue to drop content throughout the week. Look out for that. Thanks for tuning in to this one. Dino Bam Bam, why don't you take us out, brother?
Yeah. If you guys enjoyed, hook your boys up with a like and subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. Maybe leave a comment. Let us know what you agree with, what you disagree with. Who do you got in the main event? Is it Ilia Topuria or Charles Bronx Oliveira? And then after that, you can follow us on Instagram at D107MMA. Remember, if you made it through this entire fucking thing here, follow us on Instagram. That's where you're going to be able to see the giveaway details as soon as we drop those next week. DS, I'm excited to see just like a fucking fan, right? We've never been recognized. We're only at 1,000 subscribers. That shit doesn't happen. But to be able to fucking take somebody who like actually watches what the fuck mean, who are we? To take somebody
and I think we're two pretty fun guys to hang out with. So.
Yeah, we drink a lot and we're exciting and we swear and all that, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun as hell. So look out for that, guys. DS, you got anything else?
Nothing else, brother.
Guys, that is DS. My name is Dino Bam Bam. This is D107 MMA. Look out for the video tomorrow with Harry from Proshmo Bets. He's gonna be doing the gun to the head, DS.
No, I saw the messages.
He's 2-0. He's 2-0 in that. So we'll see if he goes 3-0. Anyways, guys, this was D107 MMA. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.